Well, a new documentary series is digging into the treatment of child actors at Nickelodeon from the 1990s to the early 2000s. It is called Quiet on the Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV. And in it, former child actors are speaking out about being overworked, performing skits that contain adult innuendo, racism and sexism, and facing sexual abuse. Now, BC, of course, is known as Hollywood North in Canada, has a sizable acting community of its own here. And so to learn about the child performer protections in place in our own film industry, we're joined by Martin Gordey in studio this morning. He's the president of the UBCP ACTRA, and it's, of course, the Union for Actors in BC. And thank you for coming to studio with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you being here. The accounts that came out in this documentary are pretty harrowing, to say the least. I mean, what can you tell us first off about how what the situation is like for child performers here in BC? Because I know there have been a lot of changes over the years as we see more kids in more roles here.
Yeah, well, so our union has about 500 members who are minors.
Yeah.
The youngest one is 3 years old. And you can work from the age of 15 days on in the province.
Really?
So the situation is you have union productions and you have non-union productions. Back in the 2000s, 2003, the government of the time removed a lot of protections that were in the regulations that were enforceable and made them guidelines. Fortunately, we had negotiated into our contracts those same protections for children. So if you're working on a union set, there's a lot of protections. A parent, guardian, or chaperone has to be within sight and sound of the child at all times, and that's important if they're doing wardrobe or getting mic'd, that kind of thing.
Right.
And a lot of protections in terms of working hours and so forth. But in the non-union world, and for me that's really a concern, those protections aren't there.
At what point is a child considered a minor in the film business? Is it the same as in real life? Is it up to the age of 19 years old, I guess, or is it earlier?
Yeah. Well, in terms of the hours they can work and stuff, it's broken up a bit.
Yeah.
But basically, they're a minor until they come of age.
Yeah.
When they're 16, it becomes a whole different thing. They can work longer hours and so forth.
Right. And so what kind of protections then can the union offer to minors if they encounter, a difficult workplace?
Call the union. We'll send somebody to the set. We just had an orientation session for union and non-union guardians of minors and teen actors, as it were, to tell them all the protections, all the things you can expect and what you can say, no, that's wrong.
Yeah.
You have the right to refuse unsafe work, and that includes stuff that's mentally unsafe,
Right.
or emotionally unsafe.
Is that tough, though, for a young actor who is, at the beginning of their career, trying to build a career, who really wants to say yes to everything?
It's tough. Of course it is. Yeah, you're always fear that you'll never work again. In my experience, I mean, as a performer myself, I've run into cases where I went, no, and it hasn't really affected my career.
Right.
But there is that fear you'll never work again.
Yeah.
And if they're laying that on you, you may want to think twice about working with those folks.